Easter's in full bloom at Whole Foods Market with great deals on spiral cut bone-in ham and leg of lamb, both crowd pleasers. Round out your spread with quiche, deviled eggs, and delicious catering platters from Prepared Foods. Oh, and remember to pick up a Whole Foods Market bunny cake from the bakery. Strapped for time? They cater too, with delicious options available without the effort. Find hundreds of Easter deals and delights now at Whole Foods Market.
Today on CityCast Boise, imagine inviting 14 strangers into your home every single weekend. For Under the Table's Aiden David, that's a dream come true. He tells executive producer Frankie Barnhill how his experimental supper club is building community and reinventing the dining experience. It's Monday, March 25th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about.
Aiden, thanks so much for coming on CityCast Boise.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited.
Yes. Okay. So set the scene for me a little bit. You and your husband started Under the Table as a creative outlet, a way for you to help pay for your wedding, I understand.
It's true. Yes. One of the most unique kind of aspects of our experience was it started off very unintentional. We decided to maybe start this idea of a supper club, and it originally started with just a handful of our close friends saying, hey, why don't you cook us dinner and we'll contribute to your wedding fund? And that immediately turned into them inviting friends, then friends of others joining. And all of a sudden, within 6 months, we had a complete table of 14 strangers joining us from what they had heard in that shared experience.
Wow. So yeah, it started just super word of mouth with your friends, and then it's grown. I understand now you're dedicated full time to this. This is your job now. Wow.
It is. Yes, I left my full-time position in the nonprofit sector in June, and we went from hosting typically anywhere from 2 to 4 dinners a month to now hosting about 12.
Oh my gosh. Wow. What do you think is it about the supper club model and about what you're doing specifically that is just really capturing people in Boise, and people want to come to these things?
Well, I think a lot of it really came from 2020 when during that pandemic, we saw opportunities for people to reimagine the dining experience with food delivery services and with pop-up kitchens and just a variety of ways. The consumer really got to see, a dining experience can be different. And so for us, we really focused on both my husband and I's background and skills in the hospitality industry and just our natural abilities to host. And we said, why don't we actually flip this kind of model of a typical restaurant on its head, and let's invite people to our home and give them this really personal experience where they get to really literally have dinner in our living room with our dogs and with each other. And instead of having a menu where they pick an order from, we'll have one family style meal with dishes that we've been cultivating and crafting that are either seasonal and local ingredients. And I think people just really love that idea of doing something unique and different. And it wasn't that experience that you would find at a typical restaurant where there's other folks and conversations happening. You're having one joint conversation in a really unique environment and the privacy of someone's home.
Right. Talk about, intimacy, personal connection. And I understand it's people come together who maybe there's one couple who's coming to this, but then they don't know anybody. It's strangers at the beginning of the night.
It is. Yeah. So we have 14 total seats, and sometimes that might be one group of 4 with a couple of friends, or it might be just a couple. We've actually had a couple blind dates that have come to our dinner.
Talk about an environment for a blind date. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have 14 just different unique personalities, most of which don't know each other, coming together to try something new and different.
Wow. Walk us through this culinary experience. Is there a wait list typically? How do people get involved in this? And then how far in advance should people plan to attend one of your dinners?
Sure. So at the peak of our business, when we were doing just a few dinners a month, we were almost on a 7-month wait list. Woo. Now, since June, now that I've gone back to making this a full-time gig, we have seats available typically within a month. For us, it was really important to not really follow any mainstream advertising methods. And we really wanted to keep this word of mouth, and we wanted to keep it people that have had a good time sharing their experience with others and that kind of clientele coming to us. So we literally do everything just off of Instagram. We post pictures of our food and our guests. And if you're interested in joining us, it's as easy as sending us a direct message, slide into those DMs, as they say.
You actually welcome that.
Exactly.
In this case.
It's true. It's true in this case. And then we ask for an email, and we'll send, hey, here's a quick email as to what to expect and our available dates, how to go ahead and make that payment, and the things that we provide, and really kind of set the stage for everyone. And then, a couple of days before, we'll send them a reminder with the exact address. And then all of a sudden, exactly on the dot, 6:30 each night, the door rings and we have 14 strangers coming into our home.
Oh my God. Is it nerve-wracking before this? Are you is it like you're, having people over? I mean, you're having strangers into your home. I would be nervous. How do you feel about it?
I think at this point, I feel like we're seasoned pros. We very vividly remember the very first dinner where we didn't have a friend or family member that was kind of co-hosting, where it was our first dinner of complete strangers. And it was just very, very nerve-wracking. Exactly. It's like, what's going to happen? And you don't ever really know the type of people that are going to be there, or who in their background and experience.
Right.
But really, I think it's charming, the experience of being in our home, and you get to meet and play with our dogs, that people, they let their guard down pretty fast. And all of a sudden, it's just like, what do we have in common? And what do we want to talk about? And what do you do for work? We always like to start those dinners off with a fun icebreaker type question that typically gets people talking.
Yeah.
And so we don't really fear that anymore. Now we've really leaned into the fact that who are the great people that we're going to get to meet this weekend, and what are the fun conversations we got to be part of. And I'm a very extroverted person. So working at home and from home now, it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be my outlet and my filling, because I get to meet, on average, 30 to 40 new people every week, and it makes it really fun.
Speaking of Instagram, your tagline on Instagram is experimental dining in Boise, which really does sound like it captures the experience. So how do you prepare to host a dinner? Because you're not just, cooking the meal and setting up the chairs and getting everything set, but you actually have to be hosts to make sure that people are comfortable and they know where the bathroom is and this is my dog and all of those elements of it.
Yeah, we have a pretty solid routine now. I think for me, I'm not actually trained as a chef. I've been in the restaurant and hospitality industry for most of my life. So I've worked with some very talented chefs, Enrique Martinez from Barbacoa, just people that I really respect and admire. And so for me, it's like just leaning towards my experiences of them, and just loving food and loving all of our local produce and farmers and all the purveyors that we work with. But I have a variety of cookbooks behind me.
Yeah, you have a whole wall of cookbooks behind you as we're recording. Yeah.
And so always kind of flipping through those, looking for inspirations and finding ways to twist my own food. But we really rely on comfort and cozy, and just making things that we really enjoy. So sometimes our menu, we decide based on, is there a new technique that I want to learn, or is there a specific ingredient that I want to experiment with? Knowing that every time guests come, that menu is different. So I think for us, that's one of the biggest challenges, is always formulating a new menu and coming up with new items on a regular basis. That's probably the most stressful part. When it comes to the hosting and welcoming guests and showing them around the house, that we're so familiar with. I think that's, just to the core of who my husband and I are as individuals. We just love that opportunity to welcome people, no matter what the case is.
Shipping can make or break a sale, so optimize how you ship your orders with ShipStation. They make it easy to automate and manage orders no matter how big your business grows. And they might even be able to help reduce shipping and warehouse costs. So optimize and keep up your momentum for growth with ShipStation. Sign up for your free 60-day trial now at ShipStation.com and use the code POD. That's ShipStation.com with the code POD.
Let's talk about food. What have you been making? How do you select your menu? Give us some examples of recent menus.
Sure. So I love doing seasonal. That for me is what we can find the best of the best. We live in the Boise North End, so we're just a couple blocks away from the co-op.
Nice.
So using that as an inspiration, because we can find so many great local products there. But typically, anytime we're cooking, we really like to see what's in season and what's local. Most of our shopping will be at the farmer's market when it's in season. And I think for me, our menus aren't necessarily planned out to be one specific style. We're not going to have a Italy themed night, or we're not going to have a Mexican themed night. it's always going to be a mixed match. So you might have one course that's a very Americanized dish with the next course that's very Asian inspired with something completely different. So it's always kind of keeping things a surprise to the guest and kind of flipping that dining model on its head of like what to expect. We like to kind of keep it interesting and different.
I know that, hosting and cooking these dinners, it really, as you said, like you're an extrovert and you seem excited about the idea of having all these people in your home and being there to facilitate conversation among them and also to be participating in it. How has this helped you get the vibe of what Boise is about right now and the needs of the community and what people are thinking and worried about and excited about? I would just imagine they're to be a fly on the wall for these conversations. There's got to be just a lot that comes through in these intimate evening dinners.
There is. And the one thing that I'm very proud of is that more often than not, we see guests and strangers who don't know each other coming together and celebrating things that they have in common versus anything that might tear them apart. And that's something we're really proud of because not very often do you have opportunities to just share in a dialogue with complete strangers and come to a consensus or come to an understanding that it's better to celebrate those commonalities. We actually have a book that we bought. It's called the Book of Ifs. And so it has a bunch of questions that start with if. So it's like, if you could change one line in the Constitution, if you could add an amendment to the Constitution, what might that be? And some of the questions are really interesting and deep, and some of them are a little bit just silly. Like, if you could have 2 celebrity parents, who would they be and why? So it really just starts that conversation of, random things, but you start to really see what people value. And that gives us a broader reflection of Boise. I think even just the guests we have show us that there's a lot of people here that are willing to try something new and that are adventurous, and that Boise's growing, and there's new people often that just want to meet people, and that Boise is such a small and wonderful town. I guess it's really a city at this point. It's not a town.
City town. Yeah.
Yeah, Boise's growing so rapidly that it's just a great way for people to foster and create opportunities to meet folks that you might not ever get the chance to. And I think that seeing guests and Boise locals really lean into that is really special.
Yeah, okay, so this is a thing we talk about on the podcast often is how adventurous is Boise really with food? And we usually kind of say, it could be better. Like maybe, let's get away from potatoes and get away from these kind of, maybe add a little bit more spice, get a little bit more, try something new that you've never had before, Boise. But it seems like what you're doing and the reception that you've had is kind of a point in the other column that actually Boise, at least the folks that you're encountering, are pretty adventurous and excited to try something new and be thrown into an experience they've never had before.
I very much so see that. And I think that the wait list that we have really supports that idea as well. More often than not, people are so adventurous in the fact that they don't know what our menu items are going to be and what we'll be serving. They don't know who's going to be at the table or even where the dinner is going to be. So to see them pay in advance and kind of commit to that experience, I think is very adventurous. And overall, you're seeing Boise truly grow with so many new great downtown restaurants. Last year's, Kin winning a James Beard Award shows how much Boise's growing and how we can do so much wonderful things together in the food scene here. So I think it's definitely budding and growing with so many new hotels and restaurants opening. I think it's really exciting and inspiring.
Sure. Just because it's fun to talk to other chefs about, chefs about what food they like in town. What are some of your favorite spots to visit? You mentioned Kin.
I did, yes. And I think for me and my husband, I both met at Bitter Creek Ale House. So Bitter Creek, Red Feather, the Diablos, that 8th Street corridor is one of our favorites. It's a go-to for sure. We love the Wilder and their pizza. Super, super delicious. I think when it comes to, broadening that out a little bit to Idaho, I'm originally from Caldwell. And so for me, we love Amano out in Caldwell. And I remember the very first time we went there, I had an emotional reaction. I was on the verge of tears. And my husband was like, what's going on here? And it's like, truly for me, being a foodie and from Caldwell, it was just amazing to think I never would have imagined having this kind of dining experience in my hometown. And it was just this moment of pride for just being from Caldwell, and you don't get to hear that very often. So that's another one of our favorites for sure.
Totally. Yeah. Amano. We talk about Amano and love Amano so much at CityCast Boise. Sal Alamia, the chef there, of course, he's been nominated again for a James Beard this year. So we'll see what happens with that.
Fingers crossed. Idaho.
Fingers crossed.
Idaho 2
and
for
Caldwell,
2.
Caldwell 2C. Get some representation of James Beard this year. That would be so cool. What are some of your essential hosting rules? What tips would you give others who might want to try, hosting a bunch of friends or maybe some friends who don't know each other, like a little bit of that stranger vibe?
Well, I think for me, one thing that we've always done, and we love to always just welcome everybody with a cocktail or a drink. So for us, it's champagne for our dinners. Just a way of making people, one, feel welcome into the space and be seen and recognized. And then also with that bubbly, that helps them kind of just relax a little bit and kind of settle into their space. So that's definitely a go-to rule for us. Typically, anytime you come to our house, you're going to be greeted with some sort of adult beverage.
And your dogs.
Yeah, and our dogs,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you don't drink, then, we have non-alcoholic options and things like that. But just something to make people feel welcome, I think is part of that. And then I think for us, if it's strangers, we definitely love to do that kind of roundtable introduction so people know who's there. So it's not you just kind of maintaining conversations with the people or the small group that you're with. You're kind of having that conversation with everybody. And then I think for us, my husband and I, Kevin, having been in the hospitality industry for so long, I think it's always just about setting that tone and making people feel welcome, letting them know, hey, this is our house, but treat it like it's your own. We tell people often, if you get yourself comfortable, if you want to take off your shoes, take off your shoes. If you get full between courses and you need to take a break, go pet the dogs on the couch or do whatever you need to. Letting people just feel as though they can be themselves. I think that's really important. So they can just radiate their own authenticity and we can allow that by being our own authentic selves as well.
I just do have to point out, $75 per person for 5 courses with some drinks, sounds like champagne for sure, maybe some wine later on. That is really reasonable. How do you keep the price so low? That honestly is shocking to me that it's $75.
It is. And, we've actually struggled with that for a long time because we think that we could probably make a little bit more money. But for us, I think keeping it at that $75 price point really allows for just more guests and an opportunity for us to really have an equitable dining experience.
Yeah, how cool.
And that's important because that allows more diverse guests to come and have more deep intentional conversations. And obviously, the more you cook for, the cheaper you can get things. And so for us, it's finding the right items and really being intentional about our menus. I've always believed in serving humble ingredients and just elevating them in ways that I can. So we're often using things that aren't too extreme or extraordinary. We try to keep it a little bit more regional and a little bit more humble in a way that makes it more approachable for everyone. And I think that allows us to keep that price point down as well.
That makes sense. And I suppose, you're in your home, so you're not paying for the overhead of a space in downtown or anything like that. But still, honestly, I'm impressed that $75, especially with inflation and everything and how prices have gone. That's really good to see and cool that you're making it a price point that a lot of different folks can access. Thank you so much for telling us about Under the Table Boise. I need to do this. I need to be thrown into this mix sometime. So hopefully sometime this year I'll get a chance to try it out.
We would absolutely love to have you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, you can still join Under the Table on March 30th for a one-of-a-kind dinner. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another fascinating Boise story. See you then.